All right, welcome to our Zoom room. We will get the webinar started here shortly. Allow 2 minutes for everyone to join us, so we'll get started around 12:02 p.m. Central Time, depending on where you're located. We are a global company, so we understand that there are many different time zones taking place, and we're so glad that you joined us today when there's so many other things that you could be doing. Feel free to use the chat to incorporate any questions you may have, feedback, allow us to know where you're connecting from, what department you're in. This chat and this launch is for you, and so we'd love to hear from you. About one more minute here. See, all right, Chicago, Dallas, wonderful. DC, Boston. Okay, another Chicago. Project SThree, you're pretty popular up there. Austin, Texas, where I'm located as well with my colleague Elizabeth Lamb. Thank you, Patty, for supporting AUTMHQ, another Austin. All right. Very diverse group we have here. Oh, Chicago here again, former Project SThree volunteer and another Chicago representative. Okay, I think there's a little bit of competition taking place here. We need to have more Austin and Texas and Dallas colleagues. Houston, Elvin, all right. Oh, looks like Chicago's beating us right now. That's okay. A little friendly competition never hurt. All right, so it is officially 12:03 p.m. Central Time. So we are going to get started with our STEM Equity Coalition. This is our official launch. Yes, we are in a virtual space, but feel free to cheer virtually. I know we can't see or hear you, but we can definitely feel your energy. So good afternoon and welcome to the official STEM Equity Coalition launch. My name is Maria Brown Spence, Director of Environmental, Social, and Governance for the United States with SThree. I'm excited to serve as your host and moderator for this event and can't wait to share all that we have in store. So exactly what is the STEM Coalition? The STEM Equity Coalition is a partnership led and created by Specialist Staffing Group to collaborate with like-minded talent, companies, and organizations working to make the STEM sector more diverse and inclusive. So I'm sure you're wondering how, next slide, good. I'm sure you're wondering how Specialist Staffing Group fits in. At Specialist Staffing Group, we have 10 niche recruitment brands working with customers across STEM industries around the world, delivering permanent, contract, and executive search recruitment solutions. Our vision is to have the leading specialist STEM recruitment brands in the markets in which we participate. So why not bring this area of expertise to community partners that have a captured audience of learners, the most popular and in-demand certification opportunities, and thought leaders around the US with impact metrics that show their passion and commitment to changing the STEM landscape for underrepresented in STEM. Next slide. As we all have seen, there are increased efforts to make the STEM sector more accessible for everyone, but there's still plenty of work to do to ensure underrepresented groups have access to the industry that so often spells prosperity for its workers. Just like Sunny Ackerman, our company president, mentioned at our recent sales conference, we too have big, hairy, audacious goals, but we know that we have the resources to drive social impact and increase intentional partnership efforts. Here's our vision: to remove barriers to STEM entry and create a more inclusive and diverse industry for our candidates and clients. Our mission: provide to STEM professionals with interest in technology a forum for exchanging information and developing knowledge through mentorship, webinars, professional and personal development. Next slide. So what services will Specialist Staffing Group provide to our community partners and their adult learners? We will provide expertise and thought leadership within two important pillars to include professional and personal development. Some examples of professional development: certification exam prep, mock interviews and resume reviews, job shadowing sessions. For personal development, mentorship opportunities, empowerment workshops, goal setting, and career planning, just to name a few. Next slide. Now that you have heard more about the overall mission and vision, here's an overview of what this year will entail. In Q1, we will formally announce our launch and call to action. This is what we are all here for today. Q2, we will host our first webinar and mentorship session with programming taking place quarterly and additional volunteer opportunities throughout the year. This is a perfect opportunity to utilize your 40 volunteer hours. If you are not sure how to utilize your hours, please reach out to my colleague, Francesca Greaves, and she'll provide all the information that you need. Q3, we will increase our community partners by 2 organizations to include the veteran and military connected community. Q4, we hope to have client partners join us to serve as internship or apprenticeship sites for qualified professionals. Know a client that might be interested? Give me a shout so we can explore further. Next slide. As we continue to evolve and hone in on our areas of focus for our partnership, we are always on the search for mentors, workshop facilitators, and client connections. Not sure where you fit or have another way to support? Send me an email, team message, or drop your information in the chat. I'd love to connect with you and learn more about your areas of interest. The work that we are doing cannot be accomplished alone. My call to action to you is, how will you get involved? Next slide. Now that you've learned a little bit more about our partnership efforts, heard some of our goals, it's now time to introduce you to our inaugural community partners. Virtual round of applause and happy dance time from wherever you are joining us. We see that Chicago is winning in the chat, but it's okay. Friendly competition is great. At this time, I will allow for the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with our fireside chat. We'll begin introductions in this order. Michael Ward Jr. with AUTMHQ, Jason Coleman, Project Sincere, Matt Wood, Social Finance, Roxanne Williams, Urban Ed. All right, we'll kick it over to you, Michael, and thank you for navigating my slides, Francesca. We can close them out.
Maria, SThree, and all of our attendees, and thank y'all so much for participating and joining today. I'm always excited and thrilled when I get the chance to talk about STEM and talk about opportunities inside the STEM ecosystem. So as Maria stated, I am Michael Ward Jr. I am the president and CEO of Austin Urban Technology Movement, also known as AUTMHQ. And every single day I work to get more and more individuals inside the tech space. And once they are a part of the tech industry, then we show them what it means to be a techie, right? What role are they supposed to play inside of today's ecosystem? So I went to school at UNC, the University of North Carolina, so I'm a Tar Heel, and I knew nothing about technology until a recruiter from Oracle tapped me on my shoulder when I was about to graduate and said, hey, Michael, before you go down your path, have you thought about technology? And I really didn't know what she meant, right? But once I started asking some questions, doing some research, I realized that there was an entire industry out there that I knew nothing about. Like I knew about computers, I knew about phones, I knew about PlayStations. I'm sorry if you're an Xbox fan, but I knew about that from a child perspective, right? But I really didn't know what it means from an industry, from a long-lasting career and opportunities. And because of my decision to start working in Oracle, that really exposed me to all the different opportunities, but also challenges inside of the tech ecosystem. I'm very excited to be a part of this conversation today, and I support everything that Maria and SThree is doing, because we need to really connect the dots when it comes down to STEM opportunities, STEM placement, and STEM advancement. Because there are some people who are just like me, who didn't know anything about technology, right? That were going about their day to day, but once this opportunity becomes a reality, then we'll get to see some true innovation, some true growth. So looking forward to hearing from the other panelists here and also addressing some of your questions inside the chat. So looking forward to it. Back to you, Maria.
All right, thank you, Michael. Throw it back to Jason.
I appreciate you, Maria. And Michael, it's interesting to hear your story because mine is very similar. So born and raised in Chicago, but I went to the University of Southern California to actually study chemistry, not knowing about what engineering was. But after my first semester in college, I learned about engineering, and it really changed my life. So after graduating, I worked in corporate America for about 8 years, in the aerospace industry for a few, but then at Motorola here in Chicago designing cell phones. And as I looked around the room, I was typically the only African-American on any of my design teams. And so that just didn't sit well with me. So in 2008, myself and a couple of friends decided to leave corporate America to start Project SThree, to really try to provide more young people with opportunities, not only to become engaged in the fields of engineering and technology, but to really provide them a pathway of opportunities to gain an understanding of what engineering is all about, and to provide them opportunities to develop the skills that would be critical to their success at the post-secondary level and beyond. And so the last 13 years here in Chicago, we've grown Project SThree to really be one of the forefront organizations preparing young people to go to college to major in engineering and technology disciplines, serving about 3,000 kids a year to really help try to transform their lives. And so, we have a pretty good track record of getting kids to college to major in these engineering and technology disciplines, but also supporting these individuals beyond college as well. So because our mission is to truly try to diversify, the STEM areas, it's not just about getting them to college, but seeing them into a STEM career. And so we're continuing to do that. I'm super excited about our partnership with SThree to really try to help our young people, right? So how can we continue to provide professional development opportunities and access to careers in the STEM fields is what we're all about. There's truly a lack of that going on right now. So how can we collaboratively work together to ensure that our young people have access to these critical careers? So thank you, Maria, for having me here today as well.
Thank you, Jason. And next we'll go with Matt.
Thank you. So building off that narrative, coming from a first-gen background myself, we're understanding that here at Social Finance, we're a nonprofit that mobilizes capital to make sure that individuals, adults, people from diverse backgrounds have the access to training programs to be able to sustain and to be able to access careers in the STEM field. And we found that even though that we were providing this capital through ISAs, outcomes-based loans, and a variety of different products and services, that it's going to take more collaboration to make this change happen, to get past those structural barriers to employment, whether that's through mentorship. We've all gone through the experience of people that believe in us, people that sponsored us, and we're trying to make sure that we're tapping into the ecosystem and building bridges that can make STEM a little bit more diverse and in a more sustainable way. At Social Finance, we have quite a few different focus areas, but particularly within our STEM portfolio, we're making sure that we have a steady pipeline of engineers, IT engineers, as well as help desk individuals that come from backgrounds that can reflect a more diverse career set, and that people feel empowered to access these spaces. And so we know that there are different ways to do that, and we're super excited with these partners across the United States, as well as with some of our international partners, to make sure that we're being able to enhance this pipeline. From a background myself, I lead the partnerships community, meaning that I get to reach out to different nonprofits as well as other startups to see who else is making, a difference within this community. We want to see these innovative partnerships happening, and we're so excited to be able to collaborate and ideate with these other mission-driven organizations that align with Social Finance impact thesis. we're here to provide capital and to be able to collaborate further. And we understand there's a lot more that we can do within the STEM careers. And so I'm here representing social finance and so many others. And we're so excited to be here with you today. Pass back over to you, Maria.
Thank you. And we'll go with Roxanne last but not least.
That's right. What happened to ladies first? No, I know it's all about the alphabet. So good evening, everyone. Roxanne Williams. I am the founder and president of Ed. We are actually celebrating 21 years. I can't believe it's been that. And interestingly, when I started this organization 21 years ago, it was about the digital divide. And then here we are full circle, it becomes a pandemic, and we realize that that divide still exists. And so, but what we also realized during this process is that we are not only recession proof, but we're pandemic proof because our students were not losing jobs, gaining jobs and getting promotions. And we saw a lot more interest in this whole STEM field. So that's the whole point of Urban Ed. We use technology as this tool for change. And for us, we do all ages, particularly around this initiative, though, we are focused on that adult and young adult population. And we have 6 different pathways. So we've got several entry points that we're trying to get this diverse population to penetrate in a greater fashion. So in particular, we got our eyes on programming, software dev, DevOps, those areas where that demand is increasing. And we know that there's not a lot of people of color in that, particularly our youth who are very inspired by programming. And it's an easier reach for us to get them engaged. And so we've got some initiatives happening around that. And the cutest part of Urban Ed, though, we actually go all the way back to the little ones that are not thinking about STEM as a child and in kindergarten, first and second grade, as a young color, they're not thinking about it. They're thinking about other things. And we're actually engaging them that early to understand exactly what's happening with this whole STEM world, and that it's not about being a geek, but it's, you can be gangster and still do technology, because we're going to get direct deposit right at the end of the day. So we're excited to be a part of this initiative. We've worked with SThree over the past year during the pandemic, and they were extremely helpful and a powerful part of adding value to Urban Ed and what we were doing, how we were able to extend our capacity in doing the work that we do. So I'm excited to even connect with you guys from around the country. I'm like, wow, this is big stuff. I'm in DC, I got Chicago and all this going on. So this is exciting stuff. I'm excited about what this year is going to bring. So thank you, Maria.
Wow, 4 partners and all of this impact taking place. And one fun fact, as Roxanne mentioned, Urban Ed did start this formal process for the STEM Coalition. So they were the vision or the foundation essentially in Project Sincere that had volunteer support efforts take place last year. And so one of the exciting things that took place this year for Black History Month with our ERGs, Urban Ed was the recipient of a fundraiser that is currently going on right now. And so those that are tuning in from Specialist Staffing Group, our various brands in SThree, now is the shameless plug for donation time. So if you have not donated yet, make sure you reach out to your ERG leads or Don Fry with DEI to make sure that we're providing financial resources as well for our community partners. And that's something that we will do with our community partners as well, is provide support financially best we can to our organizational partners. And so shameless plug, the Black History Month fundraiser is still taking place with ERGs. And I see how competitive the chat is, and it is a competition based on regions. And so I'm excited to see who will win this competition. I know Chicago is showing up very loud and proud in the chat. Let's see how the competition leads at the end. So again, thank you panelists for the introduction. And so I do have a quick poll for those that are attending. I clicked the poll and I was like, oh, that's covering faces. We don't want to do that. We want to show all of our vibrant and beautiful faces here that are participating. So I'm going to launch the poll now. Give a few moments to respond to this. Okay, look like it's still up. There we go. Okay, so the poll should be up. Let's relaunch it. Did it really quickly. All right. So in your opinion, what are the biggest barriers to STEM entry? Required training and certifications, early exposure to STEM roles, fewer role models or mentors, lack of intentional recruitment efforts. And it is multiple choice because I knew it was probably difficult to choose just one. And yes, Brittany Williams is in the audience representing our African-American ERG. And yes, the fundraiser is taking place. All right, we have answers coming in, responses. All right, so far, early exposure to STEM roles is leading. All right, going to change a little bit, still leading early exposure to STEM roles. Fewer role models or mentors, required training and certifications, and then lack of intentional recruitment efforts. So out of our participants, we had 80% participation rate. I think that's good with me. And let me make sure nothing has changed. All right, so leading early exposure to STEM roles, fewer role models or mentors, required training and certifications, lack of intentional recruitment efforts. All right, and we'll share those results with you really quickly. So here are our findings, and I did see something in the chat taking place here. You don't know what you don't know. Let me scroll. Let's see. You can't be what you don't see. Exactly. All right. Those are all great points. My exposure to the STEM or tech field essentially started when I was in university at Texas Wesleyan University. I was in the Army National Guard at that time and looking for an on-campus role as well as a student worker, and applied to the Information Technology Service Desk with no background, no knowledge. I was a PR marketing major. But one of the directors of that department was a Navy veteran. And so we connected on that military experience or connection. He said, you can handle the military, you can handle tech and STEM. And so I was able to participate in some upskilling opportunities and really learn about the world of IT in that capacity, and would have never known about the opportunities and roles that existed if I had not had someone that, one, gave me an opportunity to learn more, and also expose me to the various career paths that take place in the STEM and IT sector. So thank you again, panelists, for all of the work that you're doing. Based on that survey that we saw, we know based on research some of the biggest barriers, but I'd really like to hear from you as you work with a lot of these adult learners and also some of your young aspiring professionals as well. What are the biggest barriers to tech entry for the Black and Latinx community, in your opinion? Let yourselves unmute and speak freely. Again, this is a fireside chat with our panelists, so we want to make sure that this space is for you. So feel free to answer whenever you're ready.
So when I saw the poll come through, my immediate response was, are we talking about the end user or are we talking about the employers? So on the employer side, the employers say they can't find talent. So what I would say is that on the employer side, intentional recruiting is one of the biggest challenges that I would say, because if we're talking about increasing diversity, increasing those that are Black and Hispanic, we'll go out and hire those that are Black and Hispanic, right? We need to really be intentional with the numbers that we're looking at instead of being more passive around these opportunities, right? So if we're really looking about moving the needle, what do we need to make sure that the majority of our time, energy, and focus is in those communities that need the most help? And one of the greatest examples I like to use is that right now within the Black and Hispanic community, like their house is on fire, right? So let's go and put their fire out. Like let's go and get all the hands on deck, all the employers, everybody come together, and let's make sure that this problem is addressed. So instead of employers saying they can't find the talent or these individuals are not quote unquote skilled enough, well, give them the skills, give them the experience, right? Go out there and say, we need to hire 50 individuals that are Black and Hispanic. Great. Let's get 50 individuals, train and develop them, and then hire them. Very simple, right? So that's one of the challenges I see on the employer side. But when I think about the end user, right? When I think about myself, Jason shared a very similar story. When I think about us that don't know about technology, that are going our day-to-days, we have our own environment, people around us aren't techies, they're not entrepreneurs. Like it's very difficult for us to think about something we've never thought about, right? So in situations like that, I definitely agree with exposure is key. Roxanne mentioned exposure, which I completely agree with. And exposure can come through our education system. It can, right? And that's one pathway. But not everybody has the privilege to have a good quality education that surrounds them with STEM opportunities, right? That's where mentors, that's where individuals that have walked that pathway really come into play to show someone, hey, this is a pathway for you to get inside the space. So a lot of the work that we do at Austin Urban Technology Movements is just exposing people to the tech industry. So we're now looking to get a whole bunch of people in software engineering, even though that is one of the largest buckets that needs skills inside the tech space. We're talking about the entire tech industry. So how can we get more people to use technology? How can we get more people to understand technology? How can we get more people to build technology, right? Once we focus on those three things, well, now we really begin to diversify the entire tech industry. So yes, we need to start younger, we need to start earlier and expose people to these opportunities. But then those people that already are part of the tech industry, they need to be sharing their story. We need to have more moments like this when we're talking about the challenges and the obstacles, but then also the opportunities and ways for you to get started. So let's talk about the colleges you could go to. Let's talk about the credentials you could get, whether it's certificates or certifications. Let's talk about apprenticeships that you can enroll into, right? Let's talk about internships or project-based learning you can do. Let's really talk about all the different pathways we have inside the tech industry, and let's find the best pathway for that individual person to get them inside the door, right? And get them inside the tech space. So once we focus on the end user and removing their barriers, and then educating employers and working with the employers that are actually serious about addressing diversity inside the tech space, well, then now we'll have a substantial amount of individuals for us to plug into, for us to engage with, and have this entire ecosystem working together. So as I think about the challenge and the problem, it's really all of the above, right? It's making sure that we are early, that we're exposing people as early as possible, that we're connecting them to mentors and other techs inside this space, that we're providing them with alternative pathways, not just college, but for apprenticeships, certifications, online badges. And let's make sure the employers actually want to hire someone. So if you want to increase diversity, you have to hire those that are Black and Hispanic, those that are part of the global majority. You can't continue to hire the same type of individual or from the same location, thinking that's going to diversify the tech industry by itself. And I speak with a lot of employers that say they want to change, their recruiting practices and increase recruiting, but they're still just recruiting from LinkedIn or just recruiting from Indeed or just recruiting from the network. If you're doing the same exact thing, how do you expect a different result? I believe it was Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton that said that's the definition of insanity. I don't recall right now, but that's where the mindset's set, right? So those are my initial thoughts. I'm really curious what the other panelists has to say.
Thank you, Michael. I see your hand, Jason. Thank you for that virtual cue.
I just want to give you a bravo, Michael, because that was a very, very comprehensive answer. So I don't have much to add because I think you kind of summed up a lot of that stuff. But I also talk to a lot of employers, and it seems like they always recruit, especially in the Midwest, right? So if you're in Chicago, they go to U of I, they go to Michigan, they go to all these big schools. But if you want Black talent, why don't you hit up the HBCUs? Why don't you go to some of the Hispanic Southern or universities? I just don't get it. And then on some of your other things you comment on, I definitely think the pipeline needs to increase. So if you want more people at the end result, so folks that you can hire, I definitely think we need a wider entry point for folks, because there's gonna be some attrition, so we're gonna lose some folks. But how can we get more young people engaged early? And honestly, I think more of us who are professionals need to kind of take it upon ourselves to go back and engage with our young people. I think it's important for young people to see folks that look like them who have been successful, and to serve as mentors or inspiration for our young people. Because as I put in the comments, you truly can't be what you don't see, right? And so I don't think a lot of young people see professionals who look like them, who are in these positions or careers in technology and engineering. So it's important, right? If all you see is folks from the majority side who are doing this work, it's hard for you to envision yourselves in those positions. So I think it's important. I'm going to put some of the onus on our community, like how can we support the future generation? We can't always say that, there's a million excuses, but what can we do as a community to support one another and to encourage young people to want to go into these more technical roles? And I'll leave it there.
All great answers. Matt?
Jason, I think that's a fantastic point that we're talking about to increase this incentivization, to get this interest. Also thinking about like what tools do we have organizations that are best applied to each point of the funnel, right? It can be a little hard to feel like you need to boil the entire ocean of these problems and understand what segment are you think is most applicable to our organization. And also thinking, when we're talking about getting people in the program, how are we thinking about the complete person, the individual, their stories, their narratives, their traumas, their financial situation that are all going to influence how successful they are going to be in a career in tech or in technology, right? How are we thinking about wraparound services or advising the first gen community centers and the mentorship that we're talking about showing up for these individuals? Because there's a whole lot that goes into it, more than the textbook or more than the code, to make sure that our students graduate and then graduate with confidence to be able to apply to the FANGs, to the Googles, or to whatever organization that they feel is applicable to them. Because what we're seeing is that even beyond once we get past graduation, we're still touching on this issue of imposter syndrome. How do you feel like you have a confidence as a professional, as a new person with this field to take over? And I think us really focusing and providing tools on that aspect will really help to make sure these students feel that they can really go in and shake things up, and that they have a role, that their experience is going to be valid and add character to make sure that we're diversifying the products that they're producing and the code that they're making. So we think there's a lot of different levels in thinking about what tools that we have, and we want to make sure that we're seeing these individuals as complete people and not just one function or a student signing up for a 4-year degree. There are many more options than that.
Thank you. Roxanne, anything to add? I know we had some really great points, but I always want to make sure you have opportunity.
No, these guys they're on point. What they're saying. No, so some of the things I would add though, when I'm thinking about the education system itself, educational policy, right, where STEM should not be an elective, it should be a core expectation. Like they're going to take this course, so they're getting exposed from the get-go, as opposed to just being a drive-by and like, oh, they may see that, they not, right? And so looking at it more from a education policy kind of thing, where it becomes embedded, where it's second nature. And then I totally agree with Jason. I think it is on us. We have this tremendous connection with our alumni because we want them to help cultivate other students. We want them to pay it forward. You've made it out here, so let's see and understand why and what barriers, obstacles you had getting promoted to being an IT project manager today. How did that even happen? And let other students that are coming into this green, like you're saying, this imposter syndrome, not knowing that when they come into it, this is doable, this is possible. The industry prefers certifications over degrees. So we can take a lot of non-traditional grassroots places and put a lot of talent here. But it does. I'm with the movement, right? It's like all in any kind of things that actually got it to full improvement, full engagement, and full inclusiveness. It became a movement, and in a lot of ways where it's trickling across the nation.
One thing I want to just add on that, Roxanne, is, and for those that don't know, right now in the United States, we have about 4 million tech jobs opening, 4 million. However, we produce less than 1 million individuals in STEM technology, or in STEM careers, I should say. So over 4 million openings, but we're producing less than 1 million people in all the universities, right? Because the tech, I don't remember the exact number. I think the tech industry is about 13% right now of the actual GDP of the United States, and is growing, still small. So imagine that the tech industry is still considered small in the size of all the other industries, but we have 4 million jobs available and producing less than 1 million people. That's why we have the skills gap that we have right now. So even if we got all the Black people, all the Hispanic people, all the Asians, all the white people, everybody with all the skills and the experience inside these tech roles, we will still have millions of jobs available. That is the problem, right? That's what like Jason and Roxanne, even Matt is talking about, is that we need to open up the talent pool. So instead of us taking the top 10% of the top 10% of the top 10% and then working with those people, we need to work with everybody and say, hey, we're going to train these 100 people. And then once we're done training these 100 people, we're going to go train another 100 people and then go train another 100 people, right? Just continuously to train people to fill these roles in. Because if I've never known about technology or STEM, I'm not going to come to you and say, hey, Mr. Mrs. Employer, hey, school, please teach me these things that I've never known. Like that's not going to happen. Instead, we need to tell people, hey, we understand you've never experienced this before. Let me show you the benefit. Let me show you the advantages. Let me tell you why you should go down this pathway, or at least learn these skills so that you can make a decision yourself, right? Those are the type of conversations that we need to have that employers aren't having. And even when I talk to some institutions, and mind just some, not all of them, and I say, hey, we have these programs, want to get people jobs, their response is, oh, well, we only have X amount of people interested in technology or interested in STEM. And I'm like, okay, that's great that those are interested, but I really want to talk to those who aren't interested because they don't know. Like, those are the people that we need to tap into so that we can really provide employers a huge surplus of individuals instead of employers and institutions just poaching the same talent from each other and limiting the expansion that we can really have inside the tech space.
And just to add to that too, Michael, because I mean, really, it's fundamentally, it's a must for the United States of America because of this gap. And it's going to change our competitive advantage when we start looking at other countries and everything that's happening. Where do we lie in this puzzle? Where it's going to go? Because the gap is only going to get bigger if the education is not keeping up with where everything is happening. So we need to even look at best practice of what other countries are doing this, because they certainly don't make it an elective. It's certainly a part of what young people just learn when they just come in through school.
And there's a couple things you touched on too, leading into some points of questions that I had specifically as we are a staffing company. We have a very great opportunity to make sure that we are working to create a more inclusive and diverse candidate pipeline for our clients that have DEI efforts or understand that there is this bridging, this gap in tech essentially. One of the things that Michael put in the chat, if you're not familiar, are HBCUs. That is a historically Black college or university, or HSI, which is a Hispanic serving institution. What role do you think we could play as a recruitment or staffing company to better connect with HBCUs and allow that to be a funnel or a pipeline to clients that are looking for qualified candidates? One of the things that Armentia said here, one of my colleagues in the chat, that Howard is not the only HBCU. And so I agree, like, how can we open that door more or continue to build partnerships, again, that are intentional by saying, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to accomplish, and thinking of the two sides, recruitment and retention. So what role do you think we could play with SThree, special staffing group in our brands, with HBCUs and HSIs?
I'll just hop in. I mean, I honestly think that you all could be the perfect bridge. I know a lot of your partner companies come to you to help find talent. And so through partnerships with, the Howards, the Xaviers, the FAMs, the North Carolina A&Ts, I feel like some HBCUs are better known at producing tech talent, but we're really trying to work with those universities and their career services departments to help maybe provide students with some of those professional development workshops to ensure that they are ready, I think, for some of the internships or careers in those fields. But, I guess doing what you all do, your expertise, but being more intentional about the connections and the possibilities that exist at the HBCUs and the Hispanic serving institutions. And really just trying to encourage your partner companies to understand that these are, viable options, like they aren't second tier institutions, they are producing great talent, and that they need to really consider the talent that these universities are producing.
Yeah, now I'll add to that is, thinking about it from the employer's perspective, the employers say that the end users or the potential candidates either don't have the skills or they don't have the experience. So definitely support, paid internships or paid projects, right? And these paid projects are seeped into the curriculum of that degree program or that career that they're looking for, right? So combining the skills that they're learning inside the classroom with the skills that they will learn actually working on the job. So that by the time this person graduates from that degree or from the university or college, they already have a job ready. So we need to change the mindset. And this is where I think SThree can really, come into play, because Jason mentioned the bridge. So working with employers saying, hey, the requirement for getting this job is completing this course. That's the requirement. The requirement isn't completing the course, then going through an interview process to see if you get in. We're going to remove that. Instead, we're going to bake all this into the program. So the moment someone's finished it, they automatically have a job readily available to them. Any checks you need to check off, add that into the program. And that's where the entire institution system can come into play to really make that easy. So anything the employer would need, that can be baked into the program. And when it comes down to the work experience, giving paid opportunities, because those that are Black and Hispanic predominantly are not as privileged to do an unpaid internship summit or an unpaid opportunity, right? They have to choose between bringing in some type of bread for the family or going to an education, right? So we need to really make sure that we're providing as many opportunities for people as possible by removing those barriers and showing them, hey, here goes the pathway for you, as long as you complete these steps. And then the last thing that I would say from the HSI and HBCU's perspective is allowing the employers that I work with to fully engage through volunteering with these universities and with these schools, right? So having these we're having these employees be mentors, having these volunteers be sponsors, be advocates, right? Be allies to help them inside this space. So not just a mentor, but playing these other roles as well, so that when they know of opportunities, they're bringing that person up, right? So somewhat of like a buddy system is really engaged, because showing someone an opportunity and having them apply for the job is like only step one. But we know there's implicit bias. So we need people to handhold people and walk them through the process. So even if they have their degree, they have their experience, they still need that employee at that company to be that sounding board to get them through the door, right? So not doing the minimum, but going above and beyond, doing all that you can.
I think just adding a little bit to Michael's point, I think that curriculum matching is an awesome and strategic route. And I also think the person in the chat referencing the community college system is also going to be very important moving forward, thinking about how many both on the state and the national level are sponsoring that as a free and accessible or a subsidized space for people to access that education. And I think if we're thinking about the structural barriers to employment, we have the curriculum, the ability to do the task, but also focusing and shedding some light on those soft skills, right? So what does it mean to interview? What does it mean to advocate for yourself in that space? What does it mean to walk into a networking happy hour and meet the right people and know how to follow up? Those are all these small little things that build those blocks to be able to be a successful candidate, and making sure in terms of transparency, as Michael was talking about, we know the full picture of what goes on in the hiring process. So increasing transparency and increasing confidence in this space. So aligning and reflecting a lot of those points.
Anything add to Roxanne? You can't let them outnumber us now.
That's right. Women in IT. Woo, woo. No, not really, because I mean, I'm coming from our total grassroots perspective. We're a licensed educational institution, non-degree granting, and for us, curriculum matching is a must, right? An employer. We're trying to train for the sake of a specific job function, job roles that we've heard our employers tell us need. So we don't have as much challenge with placing with students and getting them into those jobs, because we're making sure it's aligned. And when it's not aligned, now, yes, then we do have more of a challenge. And then to keep pace with that, right? It's like our student comes in and you can't just have one certification anymore. You are light experience, you are undereducated, you got to 2, 3, to start this journey, right? But if they don't know that, they don't know anything. They can come and get one little certification that the industry is not even looking for, asking for, because someone else gave them some bad information, and then they get frustrated why they're not getting a job. And it's like, no, it's not about your skin color. It's about that skill set. Try to just learn is not what the industry needs. So, business is business, corporations, and we know that they got a bottom line they're trying to meet, and we got a bottom line we're trying to meet. So how do we make those gel and paying attention to what putting out there for our young people?
Speaking of certifications and technical resources, what certifications do you find to be most popular or most sought after with your organizations. And I know that can differ based on the location you're in or even the service offerings that you have. But I'm curious to understand what is most popular in your region.
Well, I could speak, nationally and also here in Texas. So like, there's like 5 main that are booming and have the most job openings, I would say. So software developer and software engineering, like that's #1 across the board. I think there's like 2 million just in software developing, software engineering. After that, it's cybersecurity, right? With the increase of app development, you have an increase in security, and now we're seeing there's a lot more digital crime that's going on. So hence why cybersecurity is now the second, coming up there. Third is IT support, fourth, systems admin, and then fifth is data science. So those are kind of like the top 5 that I would say just across the board and even here in Texas. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the employers moving to as well, right? So that's more so from an occupational standpoint. And we could talk about emerging technology, which is slightly different. But those are the 5 buckets I would recommend anybody who's looking to get into tech is like, yeah, focus on those 5 because you'll see opportunities left and right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That software dev is really hot and banging right now. Of course, everyone's talking about cybersecurity when they don't even know what that really means, right? They just heard someone say it, and I'm like, okay, you know what? You're trying to jump in the deep end of the pool. You have no life vest. There's no lifeguard, and you don't know how to swim. I mean, you might just drown. So you might want to rethink this. Need a little more career advice. But yeah, we're definitely starting to push a lot more of that software dev and those type of things. Of course, cloud is in there because it's now the pandemic has shown folks, that line item of rent may not be as necessary. You might start to streamline that and put that infrastructure in the cloud, and you need people that can do that, but they need to be DevOps type people and things like that. And so that's the challenge right there, is being able to line our population, that drive for software dev and engineering and developer ops and that kind of stuff in programming. Because of that, you got that educational gap, you've got this technical need over here, and we got to really figure out a better way to bridge and align that and make sure we can bring our population to speed. That they may be a GED student, they may have, they just got their high school and they barely made that. And even when we do testing on our students did graduate from high school, they're still fundamentally at 4th, 5th, 6th grade reading and math levels, and we're trying to move them to another place. So those are all parts of areas that we have to think about too, right?
Thank you for that, Jason or Matt. That's always like the pause on the Zoom room just to make sure I didn't miss anyone.
I don't have anything else to add on the areas. I think they hit everything on the head.
All right. So a lot of great efforts taking place across the US here and internally with our own department and division. We understand that we have a certain obligation to make sure that we're doing our part to create a more diverse and inclusive STEM sector for all. And so that's why this conversation was important to us. And I see here that we have our president on the call, Ms. Sunny Ackerman here, and I definitely wanted to bring her on screen to share a few words with you all as she is really driving DEI and social impact efforts within our company. So over to you, Sunny.
Thank you, Maria. Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. And apology for the background I have on my Zoom. I'm in a panel tomorrow, actually a DE&I panel here in Dallas, Texas with the local Chamber of Commerce. And they actually had us put this as our background. And I didn't realize I was going to be invited into the call today. Maria just said, jump in. So no, I really wanted to give the time and space to all of you to speak to the work that you're doing. We are incredibly excited about the partnership. Maria coming into the role last year really had this vision of creating this coalition partners to really advance kind of equity and also economic prosperity for underrepresented groups through the STEM career pipeline. So we are just thrilled to be a part of it, and really excited to learn about the work that each of you are doing and how here at SThree we can help potentially further advance the work around this with individuals in STEM careers. So it starts through partnerships. And I think some people mentioned that on the chat feed. It really starts with nonprofit partnerships. It starts with business partnerships. But you really have the commitment from myself and I would say the the breadth and depth of a large US organization of 500 plus employees to support this coalition. And we're really looking forward to partnering and learning more about how we can help each other with this. So thank you for joining us today, and really appreciate your time. Thank you, Maria, for giving me a few words.
Yes, thank you so much, Sunny. And once you stop your video, I will remove you from the screen, but you'll still be able to hear the conversation. Thank you. All right. So as you all are community organizations, grassroots, nonprofits, we understand what that has looked like during the times of COVID and really changing the landscape, especially with offering more virtual services and support. Have you seen this to be challenging for your adult learners or students to get involved? And how do you keep your students connected? What have you learned along the way with a changing landscape when it's already difficult for nonprofits to secure funding and volunteers, all of the things that we know have been barriers to these organizations that are doing great work to sustain? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how the landscape has changed over the last year, year and a half, almost 2 years.
Yeah, sure, I could comment on it. Matt, you wanna go, Matt?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's just twofold on that side. I think we can obviously see how detrimental this process has been in terms of hiring freezes. But I would say on the other hand, we have seen an increase of how do we get more creative with the education process? How does a remote world, how does a part-time program provide more accessibility to, say, a working parent or to a student that has already a very large, job responsibility? And so I think this past year and a half, we've been trying to figure out what are the different levers that are influencing employment outcomes and then student outcomes, and making sure that we understand are connecting those causal pathways, right? And that there are a lot of different factors, and making sure that we're bringing together the right people, as Michael previously said, the employers, making sure that we're bringing the training providers if you're not providing that, and understanding what are those different fluctuations, and that there might not be a new normal for tech recruitment. What does that look like? And so if I'm trying to focus my efforts in, let's say, San Francisco or Miami, are these people truly hiring from these locations anymore? So we're trying to figure out for technology, is location-based hiring even going to become the new norm? And that's something that we're trying to suss out moving forward. Michael, anything related to that?
Yeah, as I think about what's going on here in Texas, so last year, 2 years ago now, because we're in 2022. So in the year 2020, when I'll say about March time period, when COVID really started impacting the United States and more people were talking about it, that's when we decided to launch our Texas Technology for All petition. Because here in Texas, 1 out of 3 households do not have internet access. And we realized that as businesses were moving online, schools were going virtual, there were several children, several adults that just did not have the access that they need, whether it's internet, Wi-Fi, broadband, or even a device to continue their education or to continue working. So we launched our petition to urge Governor Abbott to increase upskilling opportunities, to increase device access, and to increase broadband expansion across Texas. And with that effort, we realized that a lot of the people that we're looking to train and develop, that was one of the barriers that we needed to overcome. So since 2020, we have helped over 15,000 families get internet access and get devices. We have launched our training program, moved everything virtual because of the pandemic and people not wanting to come in person, which makes perfect sense. It's like, fine, let's give you everything that you need to continue from a virtual aspect so you can continue moving forward. So we provide digital literacy training. We give people with computers, we give them hotspots, whatever they need to continue their education or to work remotely, we provide them with those opportunities. And we realized that even with the petition, even with this effort, we couldn't do it by ourselves. So back in 2020, I think we had one partner, like one real partner. Now we have over 35 partners. Some are employers, some are service providers, some are institutions, and some are other nonprofits, just like us, doing the good fight. So one of the main things that we realized to really overcome this lack of digital equity or this lack of adoption to technology or STEM careers is that we need to build the tech ecosystem, right? We actually need to build true synergies between entities and individuals that want to solve this problem. So for the past 2 years, it's been about removing the fluff, right? Where are the people that are just talking a good game, but where are the people that are actually doing the work? Let's meet those people, right? Let's engage with those entities, with those individuals that are not just trying to help, a couple hundred people, but are trying to solve the problem and work with a couple million people, right? It's a completely different mindset that we're talking about here to actually address the issue. So if you go to our website, you go to our partners page, you'll see 35 organizations outlining what role they're playing in this fight. They're either providing us funding, they're providing jobs, they're providing participants, they're providing resources, or they're providing personnel. And if you can't commit to one of those five, don't come talk to us. Don't waste our time, because we're trying to solve the problem. Like that's what we're trying to do. So if you're not moving towards that direction to actually solve the problem, so in a few years we could talk about something else. Well, I'm sorry, no, don't limit the work that all these great nonprofits are doing, because we want people that want to run with us, not walk, not crawl, but run. And if you can't run, I'm sorry, we could get to you later, but for right now, we're trying to run because there's a sense of urgency, right? And that's what we're looking for, the people that have the same exact urgency. And by us building this ecosystem is how we were able to really navigate who is serious, who's committed, and who's just wasting our time from doing the good work that we need to be doing.
I'm not going to let Michael go first next time. I think all great points. I see a little pause, but anything else, Jason, Roxanne, or Matt? Oh, excuse me, already. Nope.
Not really. I mean, I was say that COVID did have us pivot initially, but we teach engineering to young people, and so we're happy to be back in person and engaging with our young people. But I will say that the expansion of Zoom and virtual services has allowed us to connect with, more mentors, more professionals virtually who may not have time to actually visit in person to the class, but can still provide a lot of encouragement, support, and resources to our young people through the virtual means. And so that's really been our only, I guess, a pivot today since COVID.
Well, I'll just say on behalf of SThree and our various brands, we are ready to run with you all to make sure that we're doing our part to bridge the gap in tech and STEM. And so we are at that time where we're wrapping up. I do want to look in the chat really quickly. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback that you'd like to ask specifically for our community partners, this is your time. We'll also send a recap of our partners and how you can get involved with next steps so that we're making sure that everyone has an opportunity to engage in the work that we're doing. And so with that being said, I will give it another second for comments, but I do have one request from my panelists. I have my marketing team in the audience as well who would like to get a screenshot of this. And so instead of surprising you when you're looking down or having your next thought, let's go ahead and all smile for bridging the gap in STEM with our first inaugural partners. All right. So let's see. I know Armentia is still here. We'll give the cue. We'll start with smiles. 1, 2, 3. Hold it, hold it. All right, and it looks like we're good to go. Hopefully Armentia got that. I did see yes there. Oh, got it, so we're good to go. So again, I would like to thank our community partners for joining us in this conversation. I would like to thank everyone within the SThree brand that participated with us live. This event was also recorded, and so we will make sure to share it with our fellow colleagues. And again, thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing. And we'll have additional focus groups and conversations throughout the year with different stakeholders to make sure that we're working together and collaborating with the best impact possible. So again, thank you for everyone tuning in. And thank you again to our amazing community partners that are boots on ground, making sure that we're creating a more diverse and inclusive STEM sector. So thank you, everyone. It is officially 1 p.m. and we have closed on time. So enjoy the rest of your day and we'll talk soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one.